Today I'm going to run you through how I managed to fix my Megane RS250 rocket cover oil leak. I've had a lot of oil residue on the rocket cover, which has caused me to investigate further, pulling out the spark plug components, checking my spark plugs as well. I found a lot of oil in the actual holes themselves. So what I've done is actually pull it all back, video it, and here I am voicing over. And I want to make it very clear, I'm not an expert, I'm not a mechanic. Seeked a lot of help from the forums and the community itself. And all I can say is, proceed at your own risk. Hopefully this video helps you out and you may be able to save some money, but if you do not feel confident in any way, shape or form, probably best to leave this one with a mechanic. But either way, let's get into it. I'll show you what tools you need. So just to start off, we're going to be removing the battery as well as the box which the battery sits in. This will give us more room to work around the engine. Now it's completely optional if you want to already have jacked up your car. Now with your car being jacked up, it will be a lot easier to remove the mounts, which we'll show later, as well as if you drop anything in the engine bay, they'll fall straight to the floor as long as you've removed the underside panel, which protects your engine components from road grime. Now I'm going to start attacking the engine. There's a lot of clips and fuel lines that are quite brittle and fragile, so be very cautious with these. I screwed in all the bolts that I removed into their preferred thread just so I don't forget where they go, as well as I could have color coded the electronics before I pulled them apart, but I used the footage to actually help me put everything back together, so that is completely up to you. Now once we have removed majority of the electric components out of the way and exposed the rocker cover, we're going to then start working on the oil separator. Now this portion is quite important because we require some cutting using a Dremel or angle grinder. As you can see, I'm cutting off a bit of a notch and grinding this part down because it's stopping me from pulling out the oil separator on the left side. This may or may not be the same for you. On my car, I had to do this. There was no workaround. Once you're comfortable with the notch that you've grinded, we're going to start removing that oil separator. That should easily slide out on the left side. If you don't have enough clearance, you need to grind a bit more, but you should be able to work that out depending on how much clearance you have. And from here, I would recommend to start jacking up your engine, assuming that you jacked up your car at the start. This will just allow you to move the top mount a little bit easier, as without jacking up your car, there's all the weight on the engine and the bolts will be really hard to pull out and you may damage the threads, so just keep that in mind. Now just backtracking, for those who have an aftermarket dump pipe, which is a bit thicker than the normal stock standard, you may come across this as a barrier when you're taking out your oil separator. This bracket will be in the way and may not be able to be taken out with ease just because the bolt that holds it in is very long and will hit against your dump pipe. I had to cut this bolt, but I was able to find a shorter and similar thread bolt to replace it. So once it comes to the time when we need to reinstall this again, I'll just use the bolt that I purchased at the general hardware store. Moving on to cleaning, I used the vacuum cleaner, degreaser, soapy water, rags and some old brushes to make sure my rocket cover is as clean as possible, so in future I can spot any leaks and I believe the engine keeps a bit cooler. Now I plugged all the holes that lead into the engine just to make sure that no contaminants get in there, and I wouldn't have any issues moving forward, but I may still change my oil after this regardless. With your oil separator, I was able to clean it with a pressure washer and degreaser because it's off the car, so it doesn't matter too much, but it's really important to use a thin knife to get the old gasket debris off the parts which you're going to glue to make sure that the contact is adequate when you are re-gluing this part. So the next step is to work on the rocker cover. The standard process is to remove the rocker cover and reseal. However, I don't have those tools to do so, as the workshop mainly removes the turbo, which takes a lot of time. So what I'll be doing today is taking out each bolt individually, putting a bit of gasket glue on the end of the bolt, reinstalling and tightening to 11 Newton meters as per the workshop manual. You're going to be doing this to every single bolt, one at a time, working your way either right to left or left to right. Now we're ready to reinstall the oil separator using the same gasket glue. I spread it with my fingers, so do wear gloves to do this as it gets pretty messy, and you'll want to spread it around to the contact points before reinstalling this component, and then tightening and using the same method and same torque spec as you've done prior with the rocker cover. Now to reinstall everything, starting with the top mount, we're going to torque these bolts to 62 Newton meters, and all other bolts were just hand tight, and I also used some medium strength thread locker just to be on the safe side. And installation is just the reverse of what we've already done, so after that you can just start the car and see how you go. So I was pretty happy with the outcome. I had no issues with the car starting and running, and after about a week or two of daily driving and thrashing the car around, I've still not discovered any leaks. So in my case, I would call this one a success, and hopefully if this is something you'd like to do yourself, roughly it's taken me about, I'd say 10 to 15 hours, maybe more, but I'm an amateur with some hand tools, so it's really depends on your skill level and how much time you have. And I took my time with this one, so to ensure I don't have to worry about it again and I break as minimal parts as possible, just because in Australia it is hard to come by these parts for this car. But either way, I hope someone was able to benefit from this video and may give this a try themselves to save some money. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment and I'll try my best to answer them. Otherwise, there are plenty of resources out there, including forums on Facebook and just on web browser, which I refer back to, and I'm sure you'll be able to find some helpful characters in there as well. So have a good day. Peace.